We are going to start this evening talking about Everton. 50 feet in 6 games. Over the last 9 matches, Rafa Benitez's side are bottom of the form table. They've taken just 5 points in that time, scored only 6 goals, conceded 16, and have lost to 2 newly promoted teams. Is there one thing above all others that is wrong, Karen?
And also Liverpool, Arsenal, Palace and Chelsea next. Oof, good luck with that one. Look, you can't deny they have lost a bit of the spine in their team. But I watched them against Wolves and they were shocking, really poor. And the thing that really baffled me against the Wolves game that I covered was that Wolves pretty much told him in the pre-match interview how they were going to play, and he still didn't change it. And I was like, what are they doing here? And they lost 2-1. It should have been so much more. But I just think that the pressing was wrong. Defensively, they're all over the shop. They are missing Calvert-Lewin, and I think their recruitment was to bring in and help him with 2 wide players, give him the service, and obviously then Richarlison, but losing Mina as well. But they still got enough players. They spent half a billion over the last 10 years, and that's where they are. Like, it's pretty poor, really. So there's a lot of issues there, and I think the recruitment and the waste of money and the money they've spent on managers has been poor.
Rory.
Yeah, I think Karen's right. The problem that Everton have had is manifesting now under Benitez. I'm surprised that he hasn't been able to get them to be a little bit more obdurate. That's maybe the word that you'd associate with Benitez teams. They're a little bit more... They're easier to play against.
Obdurate. Come on. We didn't all go to private school.
Me and Mike are looking at each other saying, what does he mean?
Obdurate. Go on, explain what obdurate means. We're not all journalists, Rory. Come on.
Doughty.
Okay. Is that Chappers? Is that any better? Doughty.
Doughty.
Okay.
Tough.
Stubborn, resilient.
Okay,
kind of
I get them.
difficult to overcome.
Okay.
And I think
pain in the backside.
Not quite like Everton's Dodgers of War, but you'd expect a Benitez team to be difficult to play against. That's you don't expect Benitez. He's not exactly synonymous with like free-flowing attacking football, but you expect him to put together a team that is difficult to beat, doesn't concede many goals, carries a threat, and is not necessarily pretty, but certainly effective. And I've been surprised since the dip in form that they do seem to be kind of relative. They don't seem to be the sort of team that teams are really having to work really hard to beat, and I think that's a real problem. But I don't think it's just Benitez's failures as a manager. I think it's to do with the lack of strategic thinking over the last 5 years. They've been the squad is such a patchwork of different managerial sort of influences. There's so many different types of players who they've signed. There was that one summer where they just signed loads of number 10s. It didn't really make any sense. They've wasted a lot of money, as Karen says. I think they've been played by agents to a large extent. I think that is part of Everton's problem. And then this summer they don't really invest. What did he spend? £2.5 million, something like that, in the summer?
He went a bit more like Moneyball, didn't he? He's gone like, right, we'll try and get people to cross it for Calvert-Lewin. He's our biggest threat in that box. Get the crosses in Damari Gray and Townsend, and we'll be on a strict budget, like you said, like less than 2 million. And start of the season, it was working, to be fair, but then you get the injuries and you lose Calvert-Lewin and it falls apart.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? If your whole strategy is to get balls in the box for Calvert-Lewin and there's no Calvert-Lewin, then you've got a bit of an issue.
I just want to read out some of the players, though, and the numbers. Iwobi, 35 million. Balassi was a little bit lucky because he got a bad knee injury, but it was still 30 million. Walcott, they paid 20 million for. Klassen, 24 million. Pickford has done well, 30 million pounds. He's worth it. Keane's done okay in patches. Like, he'll have a really good 6 months and then a couple of dodgy months. Tosin, 20 million. Gomez was really unlucky when he broke his leg as well. And Moise Keane, who'd have sent on loan to PSG and then to Juventus. They spent 27 million on these players. And these players are good players, but were they going to take Everton to the next level? And looking at him, it was like, oh, and don't forget Rodriguez as well. Do you know what I mean? They had him, and then he obviously fell out with Benitez, and it was going back and forth. But when
Mikey, you mentioned some of those players and the money there. Before this summer, Everton had the 6th biggest net spend in the last 10 transfer windows across Europe. So only the 2 Manchester clubs, Barcelona, Paris Saint-Germain and Inter Milan, had spent more. I also have to say, we've got an Everton fan waiting to talk to us, Ped, who's from Toffee TV, but he's on our Zoom at the moment before we bring him in, and the sheer frustration on his face when you mention some of those players and then I mentioned that budget is a sight to behold. We'll bring him in a second, but just on that net spend.
It's just
he's got his head in his hands now.
We'd laugh about it, but it's not a laughing matter really, because if you spend that amount of money and you know we're better off than he was, arguably Townsend and Gray, they've got what, 1.5 million and a free transfer. Are their best players? Yes, Calvert-Lewin's been injured. Decore come back and I thought it was good the other day. Mina's been injured. So if you take out that spine, I accept that. But the rest of the players that they've bought in, when we talk about Man United throughout every Monday when we do our show and we talk about what is it that they're trying to be, I do not understand what Everton are trying to be. At the start of the season, I thought they had energy, they had a style of play. Benitez, I've worked with Benitez. I love his styles. I think he's a great manager, or has been a great manager. I think he's got all the tools, but obviously his connections with Liverpool, and then I think he called Everton a small club previously. It was always going to be a difficult sort of job for him to start with anyway. So when it went well at the start, I was egging him on, go on, I want him to seem to do well, but you knew it was going to get to this stage, and then when it came to this and it was going to have a bad patch, all these negative things in the past was going to come to light, and that is what's happening now.
And they are too, in a literal way, they're kind of paying for the sins of the past. As the reason he's not been able to spend money isn't because Farhad Moshiri, the owner, sort of suddenly run out of it. It's because they've got to comply with the Premier League's rules on sustainability and profit. And because they've spent so much previously, the amount of money they're allowed to spend is limited. And that is what's giving them the problem. Because it was a real change in tack in the summer. Everton had always been, as you say, Chappers, they'd spent a lot of money for 5 years since Moshiri took over. They'd not spent it well. I think that's fair to say. I remember Jack Pitt-Brooke from The Athletic tweeting and getting a load of abuse, as you do whenever you tweet about anything, when they signed Gomez, Mina and Dean from Barcelona, to say how on earth have Everton managed to persuade Barcelona to sell them their 3 worst players. And that was a fair comment, certainly in terms of Gomez and Mina. Dean's been a success and probably deserved a bit of a longer shot at Barcelona, but they've not spent money well. They've spent money really haphazardly, and now they're not allowed to spend money. So quite how they get out of this, I'm not entirely clear.
And let's bring Ped in then, so he doesn't just keep shaking his head rather than being able to contribute. Rory talks about the evening, by the way. Thank you very much for doing this. Rory talks about the sins of the past. Isn't the whole point when having a director of football which is Marcel Brands at Everton, that actually the sins of the past shouldn't affect any head coach, because it's all about the director of football's the one building the club and recruiting.
Well, this is the second director of football, don't forget, as well. So a lot of the mess was Steve Walsh's. So Marcel Brands inherited a lot of the mess, a lot of that summer that we talked about, when we're bringing in all those number 10s, when we're literally... We're looking for players, and then clubs are saying, yeah, that's a 30 million player, and Everton are saying, no, we'll give you 31 million just to make it quick. That's the kind of feeling it was at the time. It was like, we've got all this money, we'll give you more than you need. So he's had to come, he's made mistakes. I mean, the Barcelona signings, I slightly disagree, because Yerry Mina, who very rarely gets talked about in the press, is one of our biggest misses at the moment. Without him in our defence is like Swiss cheese. He is the leader of that defence, and without it, we're an absolute mess back there. So he very rarely gets talked about, but he is a massive miss to us. But it's people have to start looking at more than Rafa Benitez. Rafa Benitez is what happens when you have a mess of a club. The same way I was on this show when we brought Sam Allardyce in 4 years ago, nearly to the day, and I was saying that's what happens when you run a club badly. And Rafa Benitez is what happens when you run a club badly. And people need to start shining a spotlight on what's above the director of football, what's above the manager, the man making the decisions, Farhad Moshiri, Bill Kenwright. These people need to start being called out, because these people have been here all this time. Rafa Benitez has been here since the summer. He's only had 1.7 million to spend. You know, he's brought in 2 free goalkeepers who've got the combined age of me nan. You know, this is a real mess. And hand on heart, I am really, really fearful that we will be the next Sunderland, because we are an absolute mess of a football club. And it's not just Rafa Benitez, it's not the director of football. This goes all the way up to the top. And what they keep on showing us is, well, we're building this stadium, it's all going to be fantastic in 2.5 years. Well, I'm sorry, if you've been prepared to put the club in mothballs for 3 seasons because of this stadium, then we're going to find ourselves as a football club struggling for 3 years. And I honestly haven't got a clue how we get out of this, because changing the manager is not going to do any good for anyone, because we've done that nearly every single year under Moshiri, and this is where we are right now. So it is an mess.
You don't think there's an issue with Rafa then?
Oh, I do think there's an issue. You know, when you're getting beat 1-0 at Brentford and you've got 3 strikers on the bench with 10 minutes to go, and you think that Iwobi is the answer. I mean, honest to God, I don't know what the question is if Iwobi's the answer. He's the worst footballer that Everton ever have bought for pound. When you have people like Rondon on the pitch for 90 minutes, there is a major issue with the manager. But how did we get to a position where we've got Rondon playing up front for us? How have we got a position when we've got a kid on the bench that people are looking at that has never kicked a ball in the Premier League? How did we get to that stage as a football club after spending £500 million?
Right, Rory, let me bring you in on the point of those the 3 strikers that were on the bench and a couple of kids or whatever. I had somebody say to me today, they quoted a Jamie Carragher line from a while ago, really, that Rafa Benitez is a very political manager, is what Jamie Carragher once said. I'm guessing that means he knows how to send a message, or the message that he wants to send. He knows how to do it in a certain way.
Yeah, that's probably true. I sometimes think with Benitez and Mourinho, who are the 2 big political managers, that we sometimes overdo it a little bit. I'm not sure Benitez would sacrifice a win to send a message particularly. I might be wrong, I might be being naive, but I think in the heat of battle, I can't see him thinking, do you know what we really need here is a goal, but I don't want us to score one because I want to prove that I need signings in January. I know Rafa a little bit, and in a way that I don't know Mourinho, and I'm pretty sure Mourinho would never do that, so I'd be surprised if Rafa would. I think that they want to win games, and we maybe read into it a little bit. I can believe that Rafa Benitez, rightly or wrongly, would look at that game and think what this needs is Alex Iwobi. That is the sort of thing that I think that a manager would think, because sometimes it's not. Might even have been playing. Were you in the Newcastle game when Mancini, in the title race in 2012, when Mancini needed to win and he took off a striker and brought on Yaya?
Yeah, brought me on in that game as well. I saved one off the line, but you don't remember
that's
that.
Well, I think Yaya had more influence on that, I think.
That is definitely not the substitution people remember. But I remember at the time, there was loads of criticism of what, this is not what you do, this is not what you do. You don't take off a striker and put on a midfielder, but what Mancini saw was we need more control in the middle and we need a bit more thrust, so we brought on Yaya, they win the game. Benitez is capable of thinking things like that. Obviously didn't work against Brentford, but it's not necessarily... Strikers don't always solve problems. I think we can oversimplify that. But I don't know... Realistically, I don't know whether a manager would ever do something that sort of willfully obscure just to make a point. I'm not saying he's not political, but I'm not sure it would spread that far.
Ped made the point, Karen, there. He said, I'm not sure how we get out of this. And therefore, do you look at them and think that might be a way they can get out of it? Bearing in mind... he's not willing to play some of the kids that have come through the under-23s. I don't know how good some of those lads are that are coming through, and they don't have any money to spend. How is he firefighting again just to keep them in the Premier League? Exactly what he did at Newcastle.
Well, look what he's up against. Like I said earlier, he's got Liverpool next as well, and don't want to play them at the moment. And I was actually thinking when Micah was saying how much they spent on players, and they probably can't spend now because of the financial fair play. I was thinking it might actually work in their favour, that they're going to have to be smart. They're going to have to really dig deep and recruit properly, and really box smart with their business sense with the players that they have. And I do think if Calvert-Lewin was fit, I do think Townsend and Gray would have been a really good signing for them. Again, I think they've gone down a bit of a Moneyball route and gone, we need that type of profile because we can't spend, and go down a specific route. At least there's a direction with that, and I can kind of go with it. Yes, he's not available, but at least I could kind of see what they were thinking. With the tactics, though, like I said, when I watched them against Wolves, that kind of baffled me because I think he could have been a lot quicker, and that's something I didn't expect from Rafa, because usually they're solid, they're together, the distances are a bit brighter, but they're going to have to go down a different route and really now dig deep into the academy, and maybe the director of football has to think differently as well.
I think just to pick up on two things, there is one other potential outcome, and that's that in the summer they sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because I think Arsenal went for him in the summer anyway, and it didn't go through because he didn't want to leave, and because Everton didn't win in a position where they had to sell. If they need to cash in on an asset to rebuild the rest of the side, that's Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The problem they've got.
Oh, hang on. Just let me bring our Everton fan in on that before he self combusts.
That it'll be Richarlison who gets sold. It will not be Dominic Calvert. It'll be Richarlison. And I get the point Rory's saying. It'll be Richarlison. Richarlison was heavily linked with Paris Saint-Germain. There are rumours that a certain agent that our owner seems to love talking to and listening to, rather than as director of football, had already prepared the deal in case Mbappe went to Real Madrid. I think we're all prepared for Richarlison to go in the summer. I think for the time he's given us and what he's given us, I think it's fair enough. But I don't think we're all prepared for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I'll tell you the simple reason why. Because I do not trust this football club to spend that money that we would get for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Nobody trusts anybody at this football anymore. Nobody. And that's the major danger. It's all right saying that, but there aren't people. We don't trust anybody at this football club anymore. You can literally... anybody from the manager upwards. The fans, listen, half the fan base, more than half the fan base did not want the manager, and the other half don't care. So if he gets sacked on Thursday, nobody will care, and then it'll be who comes in. But people want Marcel Brands sacked. They want everyone on the board sacked. They want the chairman sacked, and they want the owner to just... I don't know what you do with an owner, I really don't. But that's the most worrying thing. If Everton were to sell one of these players, what do they do with that money? Because the track record is absolutely awful. But that's not even... I'm listening to Karen, and she's absolutely spot on. I would love us to go back to that Moyes ethos of going out and finding the gems, going out and finding the Joleon Lescotts of the world, and the Tim Cahles of the world, and the Leighton Baines of the world, people that are loved by Evertonians. At the moment, you've just got this endless list of players that Everton fans really are starting to despise. And the worst thing about that is we've got someone like Seamus Coleman who should be absolutely loved and adored for the service, and people are turning on him. Why? Because we didn't buy a replacement for a 33-year-old right back who's been at the club for over 10 years. The biggest service we could have done for him was buy another right back, an up-and-coming right back, and we haven't. And now people are starting to turn on a man who's been so loyal to us, that could have left for any number of, Manchester United, whoever, in his prime, and he didn't. And that's where the club have got us now, that we're actually turning against our loyal servants. And that's everything I can say about the club, is that if you were to ask a fan now, they would just say, I hate everybody. They would be the words. There's nobody you can love at the football club.
Can I just ask you a question?
Everyone loves him. But he's not playing. He's doing boss adverts on the telly for razors, sound, mate. But he ain't playing football, and everyone else is just...
Okay, can we add a little bit of context to this, though? Because
for God's sake, don't criticise people doing adverts on the telly in Micah's company. That's not going to wash with Micah, but anyhow, go on.
I agree with all of what you're saying, or maybe 95% of it. Having said that, if an owner is willing to spend, we've all mentioned it here, 500 million on a club and in players or whatever he's done, new training ground, new ground, surely you must have some sort of, I don't know. If there's teams out there dying to spend that sort of money, Everton have spent that. Do you know what I mean? So for you then not to be able to spend
if we're
in the
spending
summer,
500 million of your money and they're getting that result, would you not be fuming though?
You exactly
Is that
the
not
point.
he should be saying to his people, what are you doing? Like you're burning money and not getting me the results.
Because I'm not sure that, and Ped will know more about this than I do, but I'm not sure that Marcel Brands is necessarily always picking the players. What happens is every year.
So who is picking the players?
The agents
who's
are in
picking
the
the players then?
of the owner.
Yeah.
This owner, he hasn't got a clue about football, and I feel bad saying that because I don't know the man. But it's obvious. There's evidence to suggest he doesn't know anything about football. He gets fellas in his ear, and they keep on telling him buy that player, because obviously they've got something to gain from it. And we're being told as a fan base, by the way, that our tickets are going up by 25% next season. And the only rationale I can think of why my tickets is going up is because I'm getting 4 extra games in the Championship at home. That's the only reason I can see why my ticket's going up. And that's the situation.
Hang on. They can't.
Go.
So, they are genuine. Is that confirmed? Ticket prices are going up by 25%.
Your tickets are going up because, and this is the reason they've given us, is because we don't want to give a big, massive price hike when you go into our new stadium. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it gradually. Oh, thanks, mate. I'm watching absolute dross on the pitch, and you're telling me that I'm paying more for it. There's people at Goodison who are still watching matches behind metal posts. I mean, I sit in the Gladys Street, and I might as well have been sitting in the 1950s for some of the seats you get in there. It's like the people at the club don't understand what's actually going on, and I'm really happy yesterday that the fan base who went to the away game, getting up at 5 o'clock to get on coaches, there was a big banner in our away end yesterday saying enough is enough.
Yeah, and
I'm glad that happened because. I'm happy tonight that this is the first story you're talking about, that people are starting to understand. Because for me, in the next couple of weeks, because we've got Liverpool and because we've got Chelsea, you're going to see more of it. But it's going to be civil war at Everton, because Rafa Benitez is going to get all his mates in the media, which he's already started with Jamie Carragher. He's already started it, and you know that he's going to get all his mates in the media next week to start fighting his corner.
Does it
everywhere
change?
He goes, and that's not me having a go at Rafa Benitez, because he deserves to fight his corner because he's been put in this situation. But he is going to start fighting his corner and saying, "Hey, there's more to this," because he is going to get the sack. There's no two ways about it. It's absolutely going to happen. Because no one at this club has any kind of love for him. So the only way out is going to be he will be sacked, because it's the easiest thing for this owner to do, instead of taking responsibility for what he's done, which is spend 500 million on dross, absolute dross.
I think it's an interesting interpretation. I'm not saying Ped's wrong, but I would say it's an interesting interpretation of Benitez and Carragher's relationship to think that Carragher would do Rafa's bidding. I'm not quite sure they're that close. I would yeah.
I have no idea about that, so I can't read that.
I think the broader point is right, though, that Benitez will be the lightning rod, and to an extent, you can't. He's not a victim in this. He knew exactly what.
But who is the problem then? Who is the problem?
Everybody and everything, by the sounds of it. And actually, that's quite a depressing thing, Micah, because normally, if we do the club in crisis chat on a Monday night, people will find solutions. There are discussions. Everybody has a different point of view, and people will suggest solutions or whatever. And actually, nobody in this discussion, and this isn't having to go at any of you, because Ped has pointed out all the different reasons, nobody can offer a solution, actually.
Oh, Ped's touched on the core problem, which is that the structure that you need, which is all in place on paper at Everton, doesn't exist in practice because the owner overrides his sporting director. That's the issue. No question about that. That Mashiri, and we don't know how much Mashiri knows about football. He might be able to name the entire Nantes side that got to the 1996 Champions League semi-finals. We don't know. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible.
We have a lot of conversations about Marcel Brands on our channel about what he does and whether he's responsible. And I can't say whether he's responsible or not because I don't know what he does. Because this is another problem with the club.
But that is a problem. You don't know what he does. So you've got someone at your football club you don't know what they do. That is a question.
There's no communication.
In itself.
That's why, because no one. The only time Marcel Brands you ever hear anything about him is from a Dutch newspaper. So we've been linked with Donny van der Beek because the director of football spoke to Dutch media about it. Why isn't the man speaking to us directly? Why isn't he sitting down? You know, in the last few weeks, the only person that anyone from the media has spoken to is Rafa Benitez. He's put it on his shoulders. No players are getting interviewed, so we're not understanding what's going on at the football club. But the club never speak to us as a fan base about what's going on. And listen, they don't have to. That's their right. They don't have to. But no one has ever sat down and gone, this is the plan. This is the 5-year plan. You know what? Before winning the league, and he laid it all out, and it happened. No one at Everton has ever said this is what the plan is going to be. Year 1, year 2, year 3. Every year, it's just putting out one fire and then starting another and thinking everything's okay. And we are. You know, you look at that table, and I really struggle to see how we don't finish in the bottom 5 or 6 this season, because it's dead easy saying, well, Dominic Calvert-Lewin will come back. Well, who's to say Dominic Calvert-Lewin doesn't get injured again? You're pinning all your hopes on one player. That's a very dangerous game. We haven't got a backup right back. We haven't got a backup left back. We've got an assortment of midfielders. Some are 6'4", others are 5'3". It's an absolute mess. I can't see how we get out of it unless those people at the top start recognising that there is a problem and they start doing something about it.
I have to move us on. Thank you very much for coming on. I know your Christmas jumper says miracle on Gladys Street, so maybe you'll get that. Yeah, maybe on Wednesday. Thanks for coming on.
We love the passion, Ped. We love the passion.
Thank you, Ped.
Get the popcorn out for that.
I know. God. It's like,
I mean, this is all going to look a bit strange when they beat Liverpool, isn't it?
Well,
Chappers, how many times did you try and get in then? I counted 7.
It was like having Chris. It was like having Chris Sutton back, Ped, for a while. I thought, blimey, I can't get a word in
I don't know if he was dancing as well with your head.
Speaking of Chris, he has sent a message to the Monday Night Club WhatsApp group that says, I'm trying to have a nice evening and I'm getting messages about Stenhouse Muir. What have you done? Keep them going to him. Anyhow, thank you very much for your emails. mnc@bbc.co.uk. Dean, I don't agree it's Mashiri's fault. He's plowed money into the club. It's been invested by others unwisely. We've been hampered this year by FFP down to poor transfers and exuberant spending by previous managers. No manager could turn our threadbare squad around. And one from Mark here, which is slightly mischievous. Hello, Mark, Micah, Karen and Rory. I'm currently on a coach to London after seeing my girlfriend in Cardiff. Looking out at the darkness, I can see no lights and none on the horizon either. This made me think of Everton. mnc@bbc.co.uk.
Nice.
It's nice. Yeah, it's
really good.
A little bit Christmassy, isn't
poetic,
it?
Yeah.
And poetic. Just a couple on Rafa Benitez. Why does he keep getting or taking jobs that nobody else seems to want, Rory?
Because I think he has fallen out of that like top rank of managers. Not necessarily in terms of abilities. I think that's a different conversation. But in terms of kind of perception and popularity and fashionability, I think it's probably right that his methods aren't at the cutting edge anymore. That's probably fair, but he's not seen as someone who you would go to if everything's good and you've lost you're some up and coming club that's just lost your manager to Bayern Munich or whatever. You wouldn't necessarily be like, well, the man to continue this revolution is Rafa Benitez. I think he's seen as a high class firefighter, not necessarily to avoid relegation all the time, but to maybe stop teams being relegated from whatever their level is. So if you're Everton, your level is the Europa League. You don't want to get relegated from being in contention for the Europa League. You get Benitez in to kind of steady the ship. He still has a bit of redolent, like, big name glamour that a lot of other coaches don't. But that said, I think there would have been plenty of managers who would happily have taken Everton's. I think, unlike Newcastle, say, it's not the sort of club whose dysfunction is obvious until you're inside. I think there'd have been plenty of managers who looked at Everton and thought, owner who spends a load of money, structure that's quite weak. I bet I could do what I wanted there. I'll give it a go.
Yeah, but the manager should know that before he goes there, or if you're going to a club, surely you should know the transfers available to you? What players are going to be trying to offload? That sort of thing,
I would guess I'm not a manager, but I would guess you're right. Yeah, that you do your due diligence, wouldn't you? You'd kind of speak to people in the same way as clubs do about players and clubs do about managers. You speak to people around. You sort of see what the situation is. People may well have realised that Everton can't spend because of the Premier League's financial fair play rules. That they're limited in terms of what they can do. So maybe Benitez looks at it, and I think, but to Benitez, it was his way back into the Premier League, and the fact that it's on Merseyside, where his family's based, probably really helped.
But Karen, this was often talked about Solskjaer. If Manchester United, and I know they're very different with very different managerial histories, and Rafa Benitez has 13 trophies and he's won a Champions League and he's won La Liga twice in Spain. But if he was sacked by Everton, I'm not saying that's going to happen either, would other Premier League clubs be going in for him?
I don't think so. I think he'd have a little gap. I think I'm just looking who else would go for him. I kind of agree with Rory. Maybe it's a little bit dated. I think, at Newcastle he did a good job. The fans loved him. But I think now there's a lot of young, innovative managers out there that could maybe do something different. And I do think I know we've just kind of criticised the Everton squad of what they've spent, but they've still got some decent players in there. And I think he perhaps, like I said the other day, I'm going off of what I saw with the players out there. I still think they could be doing a lot better.
With the players that they've got then, Karen, should these stats be better? They average just 41, but I haven't read them yet. Hang on.
The magician, go on, Cass.
Go on, Karen.
WhatsApp, no, I'm joking.
Right. They average just 41% possession this season. That's 17th in the league. Only 27% of their shots have been on target. 18th in the league. 74% pass completion. 17th in the league. Bottom of the league for dribble success rate. Average age of players they've used this season is 28. Only 5 teams are older. I'm not sure they can do a great deal about the age at the moment. But the other stats, as regards what happens on the field, should they be better with the players that they've got?
Yeah, I do. But I do think, though, I know I'm going back, but losing Richarlison's massive. I think, the ratio with him winning, with him in the team, is 43%, and when he's not in it, it's 17%. They are heavily reliant on Mina. They are heavily reliant on Richarlison, and their whole game plan revolves around Calvert-Lewin, and they are thin around that, and their whole recruitment that this season was based around that. But I do think they can be doing better, and passing can be better, the defending from the front can be better, the gaps can be better. That's organisation, that structure, that isn't Rafa's isn't that his USP that we've seen for many years? I haven't seen it. I think the gaps have been too big. I think they're not as quick, as dynamic as I've previously seen them. So that's nothing to do with recruitment. That's a training ground issue. So I do think they can be doing better, and I do think they've got some talented players, and I'm sure there's a lot of talented players that can come through the academy that can really push them on and start going down that route. So yeah, I expect better from them, and those stats aren't good enough for Everton Football Club and the players they have, despite them wasting stupid amount of money.
Micah?
Yeah, I sort of agree with everything that Karen said. The only thing is, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think Godfrey was playing left back for a bit of the season.
He's played right back, left back.
He's played left.
Centre half in a 2 and centre half in a 3.
So we talk about basis, and you want to get your spine in the team. If your spine in the team's been out, Decore is their best midfielder, along with Allen. How many times have we done pieces on Decore and Allen in the midfield? They're brilliant, but if one comes out the team, they're not the same. And then Mina getting injured doesn't help them. You don't know they're going to have a steady centre-half pairing. And with any team, you need to have a steady centre-half pairing. So if someone always gets injured or someone's got to fill in, it's very difficult. Take out Richarlison, he had an injury, and then Calvert-Lewin. So I think it's too early for us to say how bad they're going to do. They're missing key players, but I do agree with Karen. With the players that they've got now, they should be showing a lot more. Benitez, I've worked with him, like I've said before. Tactics-wise, he's unbelievable. Some of the things that he talks about and he wants his players to do, how he wants to move the ball, how he wants to press, knowing when to drop. But we're not seeing that on the pitch. I don't know if he's not had enough sort of time with the fit squad he needs to implement what he wants. But I don't know if early in the season was just a good run, because the best two players was Gray and Townsend. Could they keep it for the going for the majority of the season? It's yet to be seen. So there's a lot of questions, but I think, like Karen said, going forward, these teams, Liverpool next game, and then a couple of big ones as well in the next 6, that is going to be a true measure as to where they are.
Ross says Mashiri deserves as much flack as Benitez does. Everyone knew it had the potential to be a disaster, this appointment, as soon as we had a couple of defeats. If you thought it was toxic at the end of yesterday, excuse me, or after Watford, Wednesday night will be 100 times worse if Liverpool batter us. We're in massive trouble as a club, and if no one at boardroom level wakes up, it'll lead eventually to relegation one day. No one is too big to go down. Look at Villa. Obviously, Ped had his points of view on various things. Dawn Roberts has sent me a message saying, regarding the Everton season tickets, they've not been increased for several years, and yes, they do need to increase for the new ground, but you are only getting half the story. So I'm intrigued as to what the other half of the story is. If you want to send me another message, Dawn, that'd be great. Thank you. And just one final point on everything Ped said. And we always ask everybody to rely on their own personal experiences, so I don't know who wants to answer this. But is it advisable, if you have an ageing right back, to try and get in a younger replacement?
But the thing is, though, they've got a right back, though. I don't understand. John Joe Kenny, what is he, 24? Mm-hmm. He's a right back. He went on loan to Go on, Rory.
Schalke, yeah. He went to Schalke and did all right in a really struggling team, but he did okay. I mean, I think I've not seen enough of John Joe Kenny to know, but I would suggest that at 24, the club might think he is not going to be Coleman's natural successor. I think the broader point that Ped made is right, that if someone like Coleman's getting grief, it's because Coleman's still a top-class footballer, but he's maybe faded a little bit from 5-6 years ago, and the kind thing to do for a club, that the thing that kind of honours that player's legacy, is not to expose them when they're starting to decline. That you give them a chance to rest and recuperate.
Sentiment, though, is it? Come on. I mean, if he's still the best right back at the club, he's going to play.
Yeah, but I think Ped's point is that he shouldn't still be the best right back at the club. They should have looked.
They've spent in every other position. Do you know what I mean? I think we're reaching a little bit there.
But it's all part of the same pattern, which is they've spent really badly.
The Merseyside derby on Wednesday, live commentary here on 5 Live. It's an 8:15 kickoff. Liverpool have scored 39 goals in 13 league games this season. They've scored 2 or more goals in 17 games in a row. The last team to do that was Sunderland in the 1920s, and they've got 3 of the top 4 scorers in the league this season. What formation do Everton use against Liverpool, given those stats, Karen?
11 behind the ball.
Retreat?
Literally. Retreat, park a bus, and just, I don't know, I have no idea how they're going to stop them. Isn't it like the teams have played every formation against Liverpool and haven't stopped them? Yeah. So this one, good luck.
Karen,
I think even if you...
Can a derby save them, though, Karen? It's a derby. We've all played in a derby, and,
Marco,
wonderful things happen.
They're going to win? Do you think they're really going to win?
I'm not going that far, but I'm just saying, we've got to give Everton a little bit of hope, no?
Yeah, look,
Mike has got a point. There is an argument, and it sounds like clutching a little bit. There is an argument in which a Merseyside derby is exactly what Everton need. For all those fearsome statistics that it kind of gets them up for it, the crowd will be. Ped is completely right that if they lose, the crowd will be horrific. But if Everton get an early goal, then
it will give them time, though. I reckon it will give them a little bit more time. But the problem is still not going to go away.
Karen, Southampton tried to go 3 at the back against them at Anfield, so that's 3 on 3 really. And Everton have played a back 3 at times. Is playing a back 3 too risky if Liverpool got 3 up front?
Well, it'll end up in a back 5 because the wing backs won't be able to go out, and it makes sense. But then you're inviting the pressure, so then you've got to defend for your life. And Micah, you're the defender out of us, so you know how difficult that would be. Just defence. I love how Chappers went.
And Chappers the defender.
I played centre half, Karen, if you don't mind.
Sorry,
A little bit of every
Pub
week I have to
level
fight
pub
for
level
You
doesn't
organised
count.
in front. You didn't have to defend.
Yeah, I did actually.
There
Yeah.
you go. You were at 3. Mike was in the 5.
Yeah, that's very true. Although one of our most successful seasons was playing in the 3, and we got promoted. But anyhow, back to
At
the
what level?
professional.
No. Don't just slide. At what
Doesn't matter.
level was this?
It was just below semi-pro.
Grassroots, Micah. We must never criticise the grassroots.
No,
Don't you dare, Chappers.
stop ridiculing me. Anyhow,
But
if you could
Mikey,
answer Karen's
you're
question.
being elitist and thinking that only elite football matters. That's not true. It's all about the grassroots, isn't it, Chappers?
Yeah, it
At
is.
some
absolutely.
stage, how old was you playing grassroots?
All the way through till mid-30s. Anyhow, go back to Karen's question if you can remember what it was.
I don't know now, Jaffers.
Right, I'm going to
the
move on.
formation.
Liverpool's free, pushing them
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
Liverpool's front
yeah.
three,
Yeah,
pushing
I
them
actually
back.
think just go 4-5-1 and just do it that way, and then you can just drop back in and out. But I just really, I know Everton fans are not going to be thankful for this. I just can't see anything more than a Liverpool win. I literally can't. They're just so good at the moment. Now, they've had a brilliant pre-season. They look fresh. The defence looks great. I can't see anything more than a Liverpool win, no matter what formation they try and do.
I think from instinct, I think teams that play 3 at the back against them have a bit more success. It is possible that Southampton just did it badly. That is, I think Hasenhüttl said afterwards that isn't how Southampton normally play. He wanted to go 3 at the back because I think he will have looked at it and thought maybe that's the best way to match Liverpool up. But the football's about cycles. So there was a point, certainly last season, and I know that Thiago, I think, said at the weekend that the football Liverpool are playing this year is totally different to what they were playing last year because of the injuries. But certainly last season, there was a sense that the way you stopped Liverpool was to play 3 at the back. And teams had adapted to the way that Liverpool attacked, with Salah and Mane looking to come inside, Firmino dropping deep, all that stuff that I don't really understand. But the cycle there is that at some point, Liverpool will work out how to play against 3 at the back. And that I think that from what I didn't see the game at the weekend, but from what I've read and from what I've been told, basically the way that Liverpool's attackers moved, the way that front line moved was different to what they might have been expecting. So what Southampton's defenders might have been expecting. And that then complicates it further because you then have to work out not only how to play against the front 3, but how to play against the front 3 doing things you don't expect.
MNC at bbc.co.uk if you want to get in touch with us. A simple one from Craig McCaffrey. John Joe Kenny was the worst right back I've ever seen at Celtic. God help Everton if they think he can help
Mate, come
them.
on. That is just nasty.
I know.
So why are you reading it out then?
Well, I was just trying to because none of us knew what John Joe Kenny was up to and how he was performing, and I was just
Well, it was on the bench.
yeah.